This is October 21st, 2016, Edible Acres here at Edible Acres 2. We've done a couple videos. I'll put some links here talking about our 0.1 acre home garden. Pretty intensive production, lots of annuals, some perennials, lots of hand-powered earthworks. There'll be a link to that. This site overall is 0.6 acres, and I've mentioned a little bit in previous videos, but just to give a quick context, 0.6 acres, we're on a north-facing slope, so that's due south, and we're at 1,200 foot elevation on a place that has a huge amount of clay content. When we first started gardening here, all the plants were waterlogged all the time, and then through earthworking and soil movement, diversion, ponds, swales, all that, we're able to unlock the potential of this really fertile soil. And I thought it'd be fun to do a quick video. Maybe quick, we'll see. We had one of the driest growing seasons on record this year, and then last night that happened. That was over the course, so it's inches, well, you can believe me, inches on the right, 3.3 inches, probably 8 hours of rain. So not catastrophic, but a pretty massive inundation of rain for just a few hours after a season where it's so dry. So it'd be interesting to see how this system reacted to that. Was it able to absorb the intensity of that pulse, and what did it do with it? Really pleased to say it did really well. There's still some minor adjustments and refinements to be made, but after 3.5 inches of rain in the past, the walkways would have just been absolutely soaking wet. Now they are moist and beautiful, but not sodden, not sloppy. The beds, since they've all been raised up, you can see some of them, it's subtle, but it's enough to keep the root crowns out of a really wet situation. Everything just basically got a huge, beautiful soak. No soil moved here. The rain wasn't powerful stuff, but it was enough to really, really soak in. But what was really exciting to see was a couple things here. I can feel it. Some of the spots I'm walking, it's a little mushier than others, but a couple of our water holding setups. So here's one pond, beautifully filled up. This was bone dry yesterday. Well, quarter inch, a little bit of moisture at the bottom from a tiny rain that we had recently. But this is completely full and overflowing, but gently. So this goes northbound through this garden bed, through the lawn, back over, slowly but surely under that fence into the chicken yard, and then finally over to a pond in the front yard. It hasn't meandered all the way there yet, so the soil is still taking on this water. It's absorbing it and kind of like buffering capacitance like a battery, rather than having it flow over it. You can see some mustards that were growing. They're now underwater, so we'll see if mustard is an aquatic plant. I'm gonna guess not. But that's really nice to see this whole thing filled. And what's happening is we've got neighbors to the south, really tightly mowed lawn, and tons of clay perch going on, water sheet flowing through. There's a ditch that was dug, that I dug a couple years ago, that shunts water either eastbound, just outside the fence, and over through this little gully, and into this waterway, or it heads westbound, depending, there's like a little watershed divide up there, and it heads over to a series of ponds on that side, which I'm going to pause here and then start again over there. So now we're in the southwest corner of the garden. I was just over in that corner with the little pond, and like I mentioned, the water shunts that way and down, and then this way on the other side of the fence, just past the hazelnut, through this little trench into this crazy little zone. We just allowed whatever weeds wanted to grow here to grow. It was bone set, cattails showed up, teasels showed up. It's a really nice habitat space. We could put some fish in there maybe again. and that completely filled, overflowed to this, which is our little fertigation zone. So as I pull weeds, I throw them into this, and so this is basically like a compost tea setup. When that overflowed, which it did, sorry, my hands are a little shaky, it's a little cold out, overflowed into this, which is a very, very deep micro pond. There's actually a 55-gallon metal drum under there, about a foot down, that goes down 3 or 4 feet, that we use a solar-powered pump to lift water up into the garden. So that was filled. This overflows gently, meanderishly, all the way out. It's northbound again, but taking turns, kind of inundating, soaking, wicking as much as possible as it flows past a really thirsty elderberry and out to another pond. And then when that finally overflows, it continues to head northbound to the front area, which I'll pause and look at that too. So lots and lots of ways for water to leave, gently, slowly, but being absorbed the whole time. You can see that pond is almost a dark brown. That's probably just loaded with rich nutrient. Whatever leaching happened from the soil is there. So I'm going to take that water to be watering our greenhouse to make sure those nutrients don't leave the landscape. So permaculture principles at work here: slow it, spread it, sink it. In our case, because we're predominantly a wet site by default, we do need to allow it to leave. And so that's what this is all about. These are like ditches and release valves. But as the water's moving down the slope, it's coming along and ploof into that, once finally full, here, there, all the while giving a chance for the soil to wick up and soak as much water as it can. You can see these raised beds are pretty darn happy. So we're done. We don't need to water for the rest of the season. We're later October. These beets, the radishes, all that kind of stuff, that rain last night was enough to cover us basically till the spring now. So that's pretty sweet. No more hand watering. And you can see the azolla. I can put that back into these little ponds now. And we got some cold frames and all that stuff. But let's pause and look at the front yard and talk about that a little bit. So that should give you a good idea of how much it rained. This didn't have any water in it yesterday. So that's how much rain we got. Here's some buckets of compost that was dumped in the chicken yard. That's the water level from the rain. So a whole lot came in. And you can see our rain catchment systems over here. This is on the northwest side of the garage. And they're at full capacity. And their overflow states are designed to allow, so it's passive in the soil, to come back around, head gently down slope past a compost bin so it can pick up whatever nutrients are there, and then that'll head northbound, continuing down slope to a whole set of gardens. Here's another video I did. This is a 1-year-old garden, a transfer from lawn and forsythia into a production space. And so that's where ultimately all this water is going. Ultimately it's going down to Cayuga Lake and into our common watersheds into the ocean, but we want it to interact with our landscape as much as possible. So all these raised beds are kind of on contour, and as the water moves through, there's a chance for tons and tons of it to be wicked up. This cattle panel greenhouse has This is one of the lowest points in the landscape, and it has a little hole dug in the middle of it. So we're going to redesign raised garden beds all around that and be able to use that water, this super nutrient-laden water, inside the greenhouse as a passive heat sink and a source of irrigation, so we don't have to bring anything out here. So this is still a rough sketch. Last but not least, we've got the chicken yard. Lots of videos on the chicken yard, and in their case we're dealing with water for them. You can see their pond zone is just about completely full. That comes off of the north roof. So down it comes, down that downspout, and then through 4-inch ductwork that's buried and out. It was going straight in, and I built this wooden setup. I'm going to fill that all with charcoal and put chicken wire over it so they can't scratch it, so that it gets filtered as it comes in. But there's another few thousand gallons of water. So almost 3.5 inches of rain filled that right up. But it did not overflow, it did not erode, it didn't take soil away. And you can see we've got production. So this is another rough sketch of a cattle panel greenhouse. There's compost windrows in here going on. So excess water does go somewhere meaningful before it finally leaves. There's our friends wondering, what the hell, why am I not digging for them? That's what they're wondering. But anyway, that's our system, responding to, hands down, the heaviest rain event, single rain that we've had here since I started doing the earthworks. And our little 0.6 acres took all almost 3.5 inches of rain and put it into itself, soaking in, infiltrating, wicking, diverting, slowing, spreading, sinking, allowing for it to move through and out as needed, but letting it interact with the landscape as much as possible. We love water. Water should stick around. Be able to leave when it's too much, but be able to really enjoy a huge influx of it without it overwhelming. So there's my meandering video of our zones dealing with water. Thank you for watching. And thanks for dealing with my shaky hand. I just got cold out here.